Every once in a while, the news will report a horrible story that's loosely related to World of Warcraft, but for some reason, WoW itself always manages to steal the spotlight. A cannibal was arrested in Utah today. Police found the partially eaten remnants of 12 people scattered throughout his home, along with an installation CD for the dangerously addictive online video game World of Warcraft. Are MMORPGs turning innocent people into flesh-hungry monsters? We'll fixate on that misinformed notion and nothing else tonight at 11. News outlets operate this way for a couple reasons. One, they like to sensationalize their stories whenever possible. And two, they know viewers respond well to repetition of negative stereotypes. Let's face it, a lot of people who aren't gamers enjoy talking trash about how awful gaming is. It makes them feel better about themselves, just because they happen to appreciate different hobbies. I can't believe how many nerds play that dang old Dungeons and Battlecraft. It's downright embarrassing if you ask me. I tell you what, you pit a whole guild of them losers against my fantasy football team, they'd get their silly wizard asses stomped right into the goldarn ground. Anyway, my awful voice acting aside, I thought for this episode I'd take a look at a couple terrible news stories, ripped straight from the headlines of yesterday. Media reports that did their best to cast WoW in an awful light. In July of 2009, a 28-year-old WoW player named Morgan Douglas Jones was sentenced to 9 years in prison. Why? Well, I guess you could say he fell victim to the Shaw of sexual deviancy. Morgan was married for about a decade before his wife up and left him. Distraught with the thought of being alone, Morgan logged on to WoW to seize himself a new bride, a 14-year-old gamer girl from Boise, Idaho. This girl told authorities she could relate to Morgan's woes, because she was also dealing with dark family turmoil. None of the articles I read cared to elaborate, but if I had to guess, she was probably upset because her mom was super strict about homework, and her father was a mean old duty head. So Morgan and his child bride crossed many state lines to be with one another. They binged on alcohol and prescription pills while engaging in intercourse multiple times. They were eventually caught in the Plouse Falls State Park, where several campers recognized the pair from news reports and contacted authorities. Morgan pled guilty to federal charges of interstate travel for illicit sexual conduct. He also apologized to the victim and her family, and said he hopes to become a minister after serving his prison time. I suppose that makes sense. Now he can put this whole perverted scandal on his resume. One last thing about this creeper guy, one of the articles mentioned that a hotel manager spotted Morgan wearing dresses while renting a room at his establishment. I have a feeling, if this hearsay's even true, that the dresses in question weren't transvestite garb like most people would assume, but instead they might have been wizard cosplay outfits. However, the truth in that matter is probably best left a mystery. Lester and Petra Huffmeyer were a couple from California who had 2 young girls living in their home, ages 5 and 10. Whether these girls were Lester and Petra's daughters or other relations is kinda unclear, as different articles identify them both ways. Anaheim police removed these children from the Huffmeyer residence on the grounds of child abuse. Apparently, Lester and Petra kept the girls locked inside their home for 3 full years, not allowing them outdoors for any reason. Investigating officers found the Grand Huffmeyer estate to be an absolute wreck. They said the kitchen appliances were covered in mold and cobwebs, the toilets were inoperable, random trash and feces were scattered throughout the residence, and for some strange reason, authorities shared an incredibly detailed account of having uncovered a pile of used condoms from underneath a stuffed teddy bear. So how is any of this relevant to the World of Warcraft? Well, the Huffmeyers were avid WoW enthusiasts, allegedly. It's believed they completely ignored parental duties and basic household chores in order to focus their full attention on gaming. According to prosecutors, the time frame of this egregious neglect took place between May of 2010 and May of 2013. On the WoW timeline, that's somewhere toward the end of Wrath to the middle of Pandaria. You know, I can't help but wonder, if the Huffmeyers were never arrested, and they were able to experience Warlords of Draenor, do you think they would have liked it? Probably not. With such little content to play, it would have been much harder for them to ignore their kids. Long story short, Lester was ultimately sentenced to 5 years in prison. His wife, Petra, only received 3 1/3. With Blizzard carelessly rushing half-assed expansions out the door, I estimate the Huffmeyers will be about a dozen packs behind by the time they're released. But that's okay. I'm sure they'll be able to pay their way straight back to the front lines through multiple in-game purchases. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. If you like this premise, let me know. There are plenty of other WoW-related news stories for me to talk about. Or, if you hated this episode, let me know that too, and I'll pull the War Street Journal from future printings. Thanks for watching. later,